This is your first meeting, right?
As chair, yeah. Mhm. Good evening. Thank you for your patience as we worked out our little glitches. At this time, I'd like to call the June 30th, 2021 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. Linda, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Ferrari, he's late. Mr. Lataif?
Here.
Mr. Begg?
Here.
Mr. Daly?
Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Ms. Pacheco?
Here.
Chairperson McGinnis?
Here. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from our May meeting. Is there anyone who'd like to make a motion on
I
this?
make a motion to approve them.
Is the motion's been made? Is it seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll on the minutes as the motion was made.
Mr. Lataif?
Yes.
Mr. Begg?
Abstain.
Mr. Daly?
Abstain.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Pacheco?
Abstain.
Chairperson McGinnis?
Yes.
And we'll have to wait for Mr. Ferrari to get that voted in.
Great. So, Linda, could you please call our first case for the evening?
Appeal of Jeffrey Schoonmaker for a variance from Section 220-18B3B and Section 220-13 Schedule IB of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 857 Harris Drive, Niskuna, New York, located in the R1 low-density residential zoning district, to maintain a 12-foot by 20-foot shed partially within the side and rear yard setback. Section 220-18B3B states that the required side and rear yard dimensions for major accessory structure shall be the same as applies to the principal building. As defined, major accessory structures are detached accessory buildings or other structures in excess of 120 square feet. The shed at 240 square feet is a major accessory structure. Section 220-13 Schedule IB establishes a side setback minimum of 20 feet and a rear setback minimum of 25 feet. As constructed, the shed is located 2 feet 6 inches from the side property line and 5 feet from the rear property line. Therefore, both a 17-foot 6-inch side yard setback variance and a 20-foot rear yard setback variance is required. 12 notices were mailed, 0 responses.
At this time, I'd like to ask the applicant to come forward.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, this is Jeffrey Schoonmaker. I live at 857 Harris Drive, Schenectady, New York, 12309.
Okay, before we get started, I need to let you know that we are operating with 6 board members who can vote on your application tonight. You're required by law to have 4 affirmative votes for your case to be approved, whether it's 4 out of 6 or 4 out of 7. If you choose, you can adjourn your case until it can be heard by a full board. Would you like to proceed?
Yes, please.
Okay. So at this time, I'd like you to set forth your application, the reasons for it, and what efforts you've made to mitigate the size and need for your variance
Hello?
request.
I'm sorry, can you guys hear me right now?
Yes.
The phone cut out while you were saying that whole second part after you said, would you like to move forward?
Okay. So at this time, I'd like you to lay out your case for us, the need for the variance, the reasons for it, what efforts you made to mitigate the size or the need for the variance, and any reasons why it could or could not be mitigated.
Sure, thank you very much. So the reason we needed the shed for the property is we have a number of items: a riding lawnmower, a push mower, a canoe, 2 kayaks, 4 bikes for my family, all lawn items, and snow blower, and a number of other items. We try to utilize the garage in the wintertime for my wife's car, and we needed a structure that was big enough to support all of our accessories. And I apologize for not looking into it previously or prior to purchasing, but I did not realize that there were variance and zoning regulations in place for having a structure of this size.
Okay, can you just tell us a little bit more about what is the structure?
Sure. The structure is a shed. It is a 12 by 24 or a 12 by 20 shed. There are two 6-foot opening doors on the middle and on the end. And as mentioned, it holds all of our accessories for house and winter time. The shed is vinyl. It has a metal roof on it. It is, a beautiful shed. It was handcrafted off property and then delivered on property. We had a foundation poured, or not poured, a foundation put in of crusher stone by a landscaping company. So it was professionally done. And, it is a nice looking shed. It is not a structure that is hard to look at by the eyes.
And is the shed up at this point in time?
Yes, it is. Yes, it was delivered, and I got a notice shortly after it was delivered that it was out of code.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, Madam Chairwoman, I got a couple questions. Mr., is it right, Schoonmaker?
Schoonmaker, yes, sir.
A couple questions for you. What do you have on the property right now in the back of your yard?
In the back of our yard, there is currently a 3-season room that was on the property when we purchased it, as well as a deck on the property.
Okay, do you have a pool or a deck or anything?
I do not have a pool, no, sir.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit the size of the backyard that you have?
I don't have the approximate measurements of the yard, but I would say that it's probably somewhere in the range of 60 to 100 feet wide and probably 40 to 60 feet long. I would say if we followed and moved the shed to be in compliance with current guidelines, it would put the shed right in the middle of our backyard, currently where there's a swing set for the kids.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned this. You saying to put it in the middle of your backyard, is that even if you went with a 12 by 10?
As far as the shed size goes,
Right.
The 12 by 10 would not have held the items that we needed it to hold.
Okay, and if you were to place 12 by 10, you still have to put it in the middle of the backyard, right?
I think to approve the guidelines or be within the guidelines of the town, yes.
Okay,
I believe a 10 by 8 was the largest size structure.
okay, last question from me for now. The shed already been purchased and it's been placed. Where is it placed right now?
Sure, it is currently placed in the back left corner of our property. The yard is 3/4 fenced, so there is fencing on all sides of the structure, so the neighboring houses cannot see the shed. And it is about 5 feet off of the back fence and 2.5 feet off of the side fence. I did get a letter from the neighbor on the side, which it's closest to, that was signed and notarized, saying that they approve of the shed and they don't have any issues with the location of the shed. I've also communicated with the gentleman behind our house, who had also requested a variance for his in-ground pool last year. And he said that he had no issues with location as well, since I helped him allow a variance last year for his pool to be updated.
Okay, thank you. Linda, did we have letters to read to the record?
I
There
did
wa-
not receive them.
There
Okay.
was a letter that was contained in the packet.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you so
I did
much.
submit the letter, yes, sir.
I'm good.
Anyone else on the board wishing to be heard?
Well, just for the record, I've had the opportunity. I'm Richard Green,
Looking at a letter in our package from one of the neighbors, and it is indeed signed. Not to put it too fine a point on it, but it's not notarized. So my question is there another letter that you're talking about, or is this the letter you're referring to?
I apologize. The letter that I submitted was the letter. I thought that it was signed and notarized. It might just be signed by both parties in the household.
Thank you. You talked to any of your other neighbors?
I have good communications with all three of my neighbors. Both neighbors to the side of us were in such good relations. They've watched my kids before. And Don behind us, who also works for the town, is one of the gentlemen that I've talked to about the structure.
That's wonderful that you have great neighbors. What did they say about your application for the shed?
They said, well, they were initially surprised by the notice because I had asked them about it. And, they said that the shed looked great and that they had no issues with the shed whatsoever. And we are very lucky. Our neighborhood is great and the neighbors here are amazing.
Right. So no problems with any of your neighbors with regard to your application for the shed, correct?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairwoman, I do have a question for the applicant.
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker, I'm Katrina Pacheco. Okay, sorry. Is that better? Thank you. Mr. Shoemaker, question for you about the placement of the shed in the backyard. You mentioned how close was it to the fence and the property line? And did you try to mitigate that after you did find out that it was an issue? Did you think about perhaps moving it?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It is 5 feet from the rear fence. It is 2.5 feet from the side fence. At the point which I got the notice, I did not try to move the structure. At that point, we already had a foundation in place and had a landscaping company come in and put in the crusher stone and foundation. So I went into other options within coming to the town to see what options I had to approve the structure.
Okay, and as a follow-up, you say foundation, but I believe you mentioned before that it was just a stone base. Is that correct?
Correct. It is not a poured concrete base. It is a stone base.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Yes, Chairwoman. My name is Kamran Beg. Hi, Jeff. Did you look at moving it towards more, not in the center of the yard, but towards the center of the property line? So at least you would have one variation rather than two variations that you are requesting.
Sure. So how my backyard is it is a sloped backyard. We put it in one of two places that there is a flat ground in the backyard. The other placement would have been on the other side of the yard, which would have had the same type variance request, but on the opposite side of the yard facing towards the other neighbor.
No, what I meant was more in the backyard with a variance on the rear of the property, but more in the center so that you would be in compliance with the side yards.
I did not look into that option, no, sir. Like I said, once I found out that we were out of compliance, since the stone was already in, the landscaping company already came in, I came to the town to see what options I had first.
All right. And what would be the approximate cost of moving it if you had to move it?
Well, the cost would be more than just moving it. I would then have the landscaping company come back in, bring in turns up the topsoil, reseed my grass, which I recently had hydro-seeded. I had 6 tons of topsoil dropped in. So I would have to have the entire yard regraded and reseeded, as well as moved, and then new crusher stone brought in as well. So I believe the project would probably be at least $5,000 or more to move it, have it moved, and then re-landscape my entire yard.
All right. Thank you. No further question.
Any other comments from the board? Hearing none, is there anyone from the public that wishes to be heard on this case? Okay. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? Mr. Shoemaker?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Thank you for your time.
Okay, hearing nothing else from the applicant and the board or the audience, I'd like to ask if there are any members of the board who'd wish to make a motion on this.
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve this variance, and I'm going to say some of the specific why.
Can I just?
Can
there's
the
two-
benefit,
There's two variances that you have to
yes,
make.
I'm going to make a motion to approve both of them. And can the benefit be achieved by other means to the applicant? The smaller shed, 10 by 12, would not fit all the items the applicant is seeking here. And then this will not produce any undesirable change in the neighborhood or the character of the neighborhood or detriment to the nearby properties. The shed is in the backyard and barely noticeable from the road. And the closest neighbor wrote a letter saying they okay with having the shed where it is. Is the request substantial? I have to say it is substantial. But again, we have had many cases where people came with the sheds, and usually as long it's not noticeable to the road or the neighbors don't have any issues, we have approved it. This request will not have any adverse physical or environment effects. They are placing it in the backyard, and it's in actually for the shed, usually it's in the corner. It's kind of private. And the last one, the request is self-created. Yes, it is self-created. The applicant admits that he went out and got the shed. He didn't know the rules of putting the shed where he put it. But when he found out, he came to the town and he sought the information he needed, and that's why he's here. So for all these reasons, Madam Chair, I make a motion, we approve both variances.
The motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that, excuse me. I'll second that motion for everything that was just said. Thank you.
The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Linda, can you call the roll?
Mr. Latif?
Yes, for reasons stated.
Mr. Begg?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Green?
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes.
Chairperson McGinnis?
I will vote yes, but I do want to point out the benefit could be achieved by other means. Had the applicant come to the town prior to putting up a structure, there would not be the self-created difficulty. But I do vote in favor of it. The motion has been made and is approved. Congratulations. You can enjoy your shed and your backyard.
And store all the
Thank you
toys
very
in.
much, everybody.
Can you call the next
Thank you for
case,
your time.
please?
Appeal of Susan Wright and William O'Hara for a variance from Section 220-18A2 and Section 220-18B3B and Section 220-13 Schedule IB of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 2432 River Road, Niskuna, New York, located in the R1 Low Density Residential Zoning District, to construct a 12-foot by 30-foot garage shed in the front yard and partially within the side yard setback. Section 220-18A2 states, except otherwise specified in this chapter, accessory structures are not permitted in the front yard of any lot. As proposed, the garage shed will be located in the front yard. Therefore, a variance from this section of the Town of Niskuna zoning ordinance is required. Section 220-18B3B states that the required side and rear yard dimensions for major accessory structures shall be the same as applies to the principal building. As defined, major accessory structures are detached accessory buildings or other structures in excess of 120 square feet. The garage shed at 360 square feet is a major accessory structure. Section 220-13 Schedule IB establishes a side setback minimum of 20 feet. As proposed, the garage shed is located 5 feet from the side property line. Therefore, a 15-foot side yard setback variance is required. 9 notices were mailed out and 0 responses.
Sorry. Chairwoman, I just wanted to update the board. The first 3 pages of your packet state that the denial was updated to a second side yard setback. We received some comments from the mail out that we initially had sent out concerned about how the garage was related to an easement on the town of Niskayuna property. And in fact, the initial dimensions of the initial packet didn't take that easement into account, so they were updated. And if you look, the new denial then states that the applicant who's here tonight needs to verbally amend his application. It's a 15-foot side yard setback variance and a 19-foot side yard setback variance, which I apologize. At the planning board meeting, I was able to share my screen and it worked great. But at this meeting, I'm not going to be able to because we switched which computer is projecting. But if you're looking at the map on the kind of like the 4th page of this project, it's like outlined in green and it shows initially the measurement was 20 feet and scratched out and it's highlighted at 1 foot. So that is the legal distance that the garage is proposed to the side, to one of the side property lines now.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to invite the applicant to come up. And before we start, I just want to share with you what I shared with the previous applicant, that tonight we only have 6 board members present who can vote on your application. You're required by law to have 4 affirmative votes for your case to be approved. It could be 4 out of 6, 4 out of 7. If you choose, you could adjourn your case until we have a full board. It's up to you if you'd like to proceed.
We'll proceed.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record, and then tell us about the project and the variances you're seeking. When you speak, please speak into the microphone so that we can record it in the minutes.
My name is William O'Hara. We reside at 2432 River Road in Niskayuna, New York.
And I am Susan Wright, owner.
Our property is very unique. It is off of a dirt road, off of River Road. It's set back off of the road. There's no way anybody can see our property from any road. We are approximately about 250 feet off of Windsor, which is the other end. It sets back, our property is 80 feet wide and it goes back 450 feet into the woods. We are surrounded all by woods. The only neighbor, George Yee, has wrote me a little email saying that he has no problem with the garage being placed by our in the front of our house. But in reality, it's really not in the front of our house. It's on the side, but it's sitting in the front. And that's where our driveway comes in. It comes in and there's a large gravel area where we have our cars. And we want to put the garage right there so it's easier. Another reason why we want to put the garage there is because in 2016, we had a large pine tree, mature pine tree, come down on top of our old garage, which was located on the south side, north side of the house, set back towards the back. We replaced that, and unfortunately, a couple of months ago, another tree came down and totaled that one. So we don't, and we have at least 8 to 9 large mature pine trees in the backyard. We do not want to put another garage back there. So we thought the best possibility was to put it, when you pull up the driveway, the garage is sitting right there, the house is sitting right there. It is a 12 by 30 garage. We will get electricity to it. We will, it'll be the same color as the house. Anything else you want to add? I think that's really it.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Chairwoman, I do have a question for the applicant, and this may be for the board as well. I just want to make sure first that I understand how this is being measured to an easement as opposed to a property line. My understanding is that an easement crosses a property, and does the setback relate to that easement line or to the property line?
So just as clarification, it's terribly small, but you can zoom in here a little bit. Yeah, okay. This green line here is their property line, and then there's a 20-foot easement like this. And it is a little bit confusing if you're just physically driving in, because the driveway, the gravel driveway, is on the easement. So like this right here is gravel driveway that appears to be their yard. But it's not. It's actually an easement on the town of Niskuna. It's fine to have a drive. It's fine that it's graveled and everything. That's not bad. But initially, this measurement was from the proposed garage there to the edge of the easement. And that was incorrect. And a neighbor pointed that out to us, so it was fixed. Now the garage is 1 foot to the property line. So initially, the measurement was the end of the easement. That can't be right. So now the measurement of 1 foot is to the property line. Does that make sense?
Well, I just want to clarify difference between a right-of-way that would be owned by the town, like a piece of land that extends into this property from somewhere, that would be owned by the town. Is that easement owned by the town?
It's a 30-foot wide easement for ingress and egress. The town is the grantor, but it's actually in favor of the people, in that area. So they have the right to it. The town's just the underlying landowner.
Thank you for the clarification. So certainly you did not understand this at first when you started laying this out. Is that correct?
And that's why they called me, and I came in and I corrected it.
Yes, and certainly you have described your parcel as quite narrow and long, and landlocked, and you described the trees that have caused you already some damage to the previous
Yes.
garages. Has there been any consideration to, now that you know where this can it go any further away from either of the sides to make a variance less?
There could be a possibility that it could be brought more towards the side yard, but the problem with that is the house is raised up off the ground by about 4.5 to 5 feet from the ground level from where the driveway is. Therefore, we would have to do a large amount of excavating, and there would just have to be some more excavating going on.
Okay, thank you, and I apologize, I forgot to introduce myself to you. I'm Katrina Pacheco. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Richard Green. Let me just make sure I got this right. You had a garage that got wiped out by the trees.
2 of them.
Yep, just let's do them one at a time. You had a garage that got wiped out by the trees.
Yes.
You built another garage in the same place, it got wiped out by the trees.
Yes.
You're tired of your garage getting wiped out by the trees.
Yes.
So now you're moving it to another place on your property.
Yes.
All right. With regard to the trees that wiped out the garage and then the second garage, what's going to stop the trees from coming down and wiping out your garage again, even if it's been moved to somewhere else on the
There are
property?
no large trees in that area.
And is it correct that indeed if you are on the roadway and you're looking toward your house, you can't see the house? All you see is trees, correct?
Which roadway are you talking? River
Major
Road?
roadway.
River Road is approximately a quarter mile down our driveway from our house.
Yeah. So if you put your garage up in the wintertime when leaves fall off, deciduous trees, now pine trees, who, if anyone, would be able to see this garage if this application is granted?
The people that would be driving down Windsor Road who would be able to see our house would be able to see the 12-foot back part of our garage.
Right, and the 12-foot back part of your garage is facing what part of the closest neighbor on Windsor's property? What are they?
That would be George Gee, and I believe
There's a letter in the package, got it. What would he be looking at? The back of your garage, the side of your garage?
he would be looking at the left side of the garage.
All right, and he has no problem with this?
No, sir.
All right, thank you so much.
Madam Chairman, I have a question. I'm Kamran Beg. Have you, a couple of questions. One is the trees are close to the garage, obviously. So are they also close to the house? Have you looked at the option of just removing the trees?
We have discussed removing the trees, but we've actually gotten quotes from different tree companies in excess of $20,000.
And the insurance company is not willing to participate in that because it's to their benefit that if the trees are not there, they won't have to pay for a new garage, right?
I understand that. The insurance company would not take care of any of that.
Okay. The other thing was these lands that you are looking for a variation from are not the neighbor's land. They're labeled as wetlands. So the neighbor's land is a little bit farther out. Right?
Yes.
So how far would you say are you from Windsor Drive or road?
I'm going to say a couple of 100 feet from Windsor Drive.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else on the board?
Yeah,
Yes,
Madam Chair, I got a couple of questions. This is just for the record. I know you already put it in your application, so we can have it on record. What's the difference between the old garage you have in the back of the house and the new garage you want to put in the front of the house? The size are the same, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. How about the way you enter your car? Is it the one was in the back, do you drive right through it? And does this one, you drive to the side of it to enter the garage?
Yes. When you pull up of the right of way and enter
Right.
where our property is, you would drive, make a little bit of a right, and the garage would be right in front of you, right in front of the house, almost right there. Where the garage is now, which we haven't placed it yet, is you would pull into our property, make a sharp right, and go all the way past the house into the backyard, and that's where the current garage is.
The future garage?
No, the current garage is,
Current garage.
the future garage is the one where you pull into the driveway, and it'll be right almost in front of you. You don't have to make a right.
Okay, and that's the one about 200 feet away from Windsor Road?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is this garage going to have, I know you said you're going to have some power in there and so on. Is it going to have windows pointing toward Windsor Drive or?
There'll be no windows facing towards Windsor Drive. There'll be a garage door facing our driveway.
Okay.
Two small windows facing the long part of the property going in the back with a 6-foot opening of a door.
Okay, and tell me about the heights, just to put it on record. What is the heights of your garage? Are they the same, the one you had in the back? And-
Exactly.
And what is that, 15?
I would say about 15. Yes, it's a small roof.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone in the audience wishing to be heard on this? Okay, thank you. You can have your seat.
Thank you.
Is there a motion on this?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, Chairwoman, I would move to approve the variation. Basically, the variance will not produce an undesirable change in the neighborhood. It's a very wooded area. They have a pretty unique kind of a lot. When I looked at it from Google Maps, and the access to it from River Road is a pretty long dirt road, like you mentioned. So in terms of, is it substantial? You could say it's substantial, but it's basically a need for a garage that you're trying to fulfill. I don't think there are any physical or environmental effects detrimental to the area. Maybe if perhaps you were taking down the trees, one could say there might be an environmental issue, but here you're trying to preserve the trees and just move the garage so you don't have another damage. And was the difficulty self-created? Not really. I mean, the difficulty was created with the storms that came in. You looked at alternatives, but this seems like the most economical and viable approach. I also like the fact that it's bordered by wetlands, so it's kind of secluded. It's not that visible out in the from the road. So for all those reasons, I would say we should approve the variations.
Thank you. The motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, can we call the roll?
Mr. Latif?
I'm gonna vote yes, but I want to just clarify a couple things. Usually, we don't approve garages in the front of the houses or pools and so on. But I just want to say this is a unique property and a unique situation the applicant have here. So, and the other reason, the garage is really over 200 feet away from the road. So it's not obvious when people driving by, they'll be able to see it. So for all these reasons, and the reasons stated before, I vote yes.
Mr. Baig?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes, I'd like to just say, one of the standards that we look at is whether the benefit can be achieved by other means feasible to the applicant. And in my mind, it's not feasible to take another shot at putting the garage in a place where it's been hit twice. So that means then to make it feasible, you got to start cutting down perhaps what are very beautiful and mature trees. So also given, as mentioned, the uniqueness of the lot and the fact that except for Mr. Yee, I believe, the neighbor, no one can see it. So, yes.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes, for the reasons stated, and I do want to applaud the applicant for the very graphic visuals you provided in laying out it looks like bricks on the site to show the footprint. So thank you, yes.
Chairperson McGinnis?
I vote yes. Like my colleagues, I applaud you for trying to look at all of the different options in order to mitigate the need for variance. I also want to note the uniqueness of the property, and that certainly plays a role in this request. Given the vote, your variance is granted. Thank you for joining us tonight. Can we call the next case, please?
The appeal by Michael Manchin Esquire, agent for a variance from Section 220-18A3, Section 220-18B1, and Section 220-18B3B, and Section 220-13 Schedule IB of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 29 Dublin Drive, Niskuna, New York, located in the R1 Low Density Residential Zoning District, to construct a 40-foot by 60-foot garage exceeding the height limit for accessory structures, exceeding the lot coverage, and partially within the side and rear yard setback. Section 220-18A3 states, unless otherwise specified, accessory structures shall not exceed 15 feet in height. As proposed, the garage would have a height of 23 feet. Therefore, an 8-foot building height variance is required. Section 220-18B1 states that the total area of coverage by accessory structure shall not exceed 50% of the allowable area of coverage of the minimum permitted lot size in the R1, R2, and R3 districts, or actual lot size, whichever is smaller. As applied, the allowable area of coverage is based on the minimum lot size and is 2,250 square feet. As proposed, the garage will be 2,400 square feet. Therefore, a variance is required for an additional 150 square feet of accessory structure coverage. Section 220-18B3B states that the required side and rear yard dimensions for major accessory structures shall be the same as it applies to the principal building. As defined, major accessory structures are detached accessory structures. Schedule 220-13 Schedule IB establishes a side setback minimum of 20 feet and a rear setback minimum of 25 feet. As proposed, the garage is located 5 feet from the side property line and 10 feet from the rear property line. Therefore, both a 15-foot side yard setback variance and a 15-foot rear yard setback variance is required. 9 notices were mailed, 0 responses.
Before I ask the applicant to come up, Laura, is there anything else we need to know about this case?
Do you want to talk? So we just, like, when we were reading the application, noticed that it appears that there may be a home occupation use on this property. I know that we've gone back and forth with the lawyer a couple of times, and Ms. Vinnan has been working on it with us today. You guys can take action on the appeal as written, but if it does end up requiring a home occupation use, it may need additional area variances. So it's just something to think about when you're taking a look at it tonight.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the applicant up. And before we begin, again, there are only 6 members of the board present today. A full board is 7. It's up to you if you want to proceed.
We'll go ahead.
Okay, state your name and address for the record, please.
Satnarayan Premnath.
You get,
Satnarayan Premnath, 29 Dublin Drive, Niskayuna, 12309.
Good evening, Michael Manchin. I am the attorney for Mr. Premnath, and for the record, I am standing here to his left.
thank you. Can you tell us about the variance that you're requesting?
Sure. Firstly, with respect to addressing the home occupancy issue, it's my opinion that this is a de minimis use and therefore not required to be a home occupation. I would set forth the criteria that the town code sets. What's being proposed is there would be no physical change to the exterior of a principal or accessory structure required to accommodate home occupation. The use is conducted on the site by a person utilizing the home as primary residence. The home has no non-residential employees, and there will be no customers, patients, clients, et cetera, coming into the property. My client, Mr. Premnath, is, as I've indicated in the application, a person who owns several multi-units in the city of Schenectady, as well as a home remodeler. As I've indicated in my application, that type of work does not facilitate the job coming to the site, but rather Mr. Premnath going to the site. A person wouldn't bring in and say, if he were a painter, the wall to be painted to the painter's house, but rather the painter goes to the home. What he's proposing is to construct a garage to enhance the aesthetics of the neighborhood. He does have some construction equipment, his vehicle, tools of the trade, things of that nature. He had indicated to me that he would like to, in addition to probably put a boat in the garage. What I've put in the application is some photographs showing the grade of the property. The property on Dublin Drive is low. It rises up to the house, which sits approximately halfway in the depth of the house, and then it declines back down in the rear yard where Mr. Premnath is proposing to install the garage. There are variations in grades in this property. So having that said, that is where it's been advised that that would be the best spot for the property to install this garage. To minimize any concerns neighbors would have, Mr. Premnath is proposing planting arborvitae trees along the property line. I'm sure one of the neighbors who won't ever complain is the Most Holy Redeemer Cemetery. That's the other neighboring property in the back. But what he's trying to do is, he's not creating or self-creating a problem. What he's trying to do is get out in front of it, and not to make the neighborhood look like Sanford and Son, but rather to be neat and to put all his equipment and the tools of the trade in a spot that would be safe, outside of eye shot of any of those neighbors, and just to make it a more pleasant place to be in such a neighborhood.
Your application states that it's a 2-car garage, but the pictures show 3-car garage.
That's the current garage. What he's proposing is to install a 2-car garage. He has his wife and 2 children as well. They all have cars.
So the sketch that was submitted is not of what you're trying to,
3-car garage, I'm sorry, my mistake, 3-car garage.
so the application is actually for a 3-car garage, not a 2. Do we have to do anything?
The picture shows it. It's a three-door garage.
Any questions from the board?
Chairwoman, I hope this is on. I don't know if it is. Is it on? Okay, I'll try talking anyway. Hopefully you can hear me. One of the parts of your application described the building as sitting below grade. I just want to understand what you meant by that statement in the application.
I'll do that for him. Property on Dublin Drive is low. It's shown in the photographs that I attached to the application. You have to drive up grade to get to where the house sits. The house sits at the top of the grade. And then from where the house sits, going back down in the backyard towards where the Most Holy Redeemer Cemetery is, it goes back down again from low grade, high grade, and back down. So having that said, where the garage is proposed to be placed will be below grade. So with any concerns or addressing any concerns from the street, that garage in all likelihood probably will not even be visible because you have to go up and then it goes down, and that's where the construction would be.
And you mentioned previously that the applicant would be planting some shrubs or trees along the property lines. With which property lines and between what neighbors?
Arborvitaes, it would be the neighbors on the east side. So that would be from where Mr. Premnow's house is, heading out from his house, like you're going out towards Route 7. So
Okay,
if you're
so-
looking at the house, would be the homes.
To the left? Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, a couple questions, sir. Just curiosity, did you look at any option to have a smaller size of a garage? This looks like it's 2,400, is it 2,400 square feet? Did you look at any other option to minimize the request that you have for the side setback of 15 feet on each side? Did you look at any of those options?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. When it goes on the driveway, so I don't want to go back and have blacktop goes all the way to the center of the property. So I'm trying to stay in the same line of the driveway going down.
Right, but so my question is to you, did you look at minimizing or or having a smaller size of a garage so you don't have to have the request for 15 feet?
I don't think so, because I really need that room for everything to park in there. I don't want anything to park in the driveway.
So you need a three-car garage. Do you have a garage already on the property or you don't?
No, I don't have a garage. I have a garage in the home there.
It's an attached garage.
So what would be the total of the garage? Will be 3 doors altogether?
3 doors.
3 doors altogether with existing and adding this one?
No,
No.
no.
So explain to me what you have.
I have 3-car garage attached to the house, and I got my wife and 2 kids are using those.
Right.
And that's why I'm building the other one, so I can put all my
So
stuff.
you build in another 3-door garage. So you will have a total of 6 doors.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm Kamran Beg. I wanted to ask you if you've looked at other alternatives, because when I read through this, it seems like you're trying to store tools of the trade.
Right.
And given our economy right now, there are a lot of rentals available for warehouse space or garages that one could rent instead of building something in a residential area.
As I had indicated, from time, he's property manager, so one of the things that he would like to store in there is snowplow. So it has to get out in the middle of the night, he has to attach that plow and get out and work on his property. Or if a toilet breaks, he has to get out of the house and get to that property and remediate the problem. It would make more sense for his stuff to be there on site so he can get out and get that task performed promptly, as opposed to going to an off-site storage area. And then, in my opinion as well, would that also create a problem where there could be vandalism, theft, things of that nature? If he has his stuff there, he doesn't have to concern himself with someone breaking in and stealing a tabletop saw or a shop vac or whatever these guys think are valuable when they're selling on the street corner.
Sure. Thank you.
Can you help me out?
Right?
Thanks. I'm Richard Green. So you're standing on the roadway facing the front of the house, right? And it's an incline up to the house. And then you get to the area where you're asking for a variance to build the structure, and that's on, I'm asking, is that on level ground?
It's on level ground, but it's goes right down.
All right, and we'll assume for the moment that your neighbors in the cemetery will not complain. But I'm wondering,
So far.
but I'm wondering about the neighbor who is, as you're facing the front of your house on the left-hand side. Have you had a chance to speak with that neighbor?
Yes, I went wrong and I went wrong and talked to every neighbor, and they don't have a problem with it.
Yep, did you specifically, and I appreciate that,
Yes.
did you specifically speak with the neighbor who is, as you face the front of your house on the left-hand side?
Yes, I do.
All right,
He did so at my encouragement. I anticipated that would have been a question, and I anticipated, obviously, that those flyers would be sent out about this hearing, and I did tell my client to, as a courtesy, let them know what's going on.
yep. And if this application is granted, does it affect the placement of the basketball hoop shown in your photograph?
Yes, it's already gone. I take that.
Yeah, all right. Where are you gonna put that? No, I'm asking.
I think it's in the back of the dumpster.
Yeah, all right.
Prem doesn't look like he plays too much hoop.
And you're asking for a structure with a certain height, right? How tall is it at the top of the height of the structure?
23 feet.
Is there any way, have you given any thought, or did you look into whether you might be able to bring that down? Just, maybe a couple feet?
Yes, I was looking to that. I talked to my architect, but being the land is sloped down and then goes down to the level. So when you come down with a truck, my boat, I got to get clearance to get under because the drop of the back of the land.
There is a grade. I did attach the topography map
Yep,
to
I
the
saw it.
application, and there is a grade of, it looks like it goes from the back house is at 270 feet above grade down to 274 feet, and that's at or about where the garage is being proposed to be installed. So we do have a decline of approximately 4 feet, and what Mr. Primouth is saying is that little dip has to be factored in.
Yes. What's, if you could, as best you're able, describe for me the relationship of the height of the garage you're proposing and then the house and garage that's part of the house? How high does the roof go in relationship to the house and garage that's already there?
Well, for the new structure you're talking about,
Yes,
for the new structure, you would barely you might be halfway of the garage door from the house. So you would not even see it from the road.
yeah. And how about the neighbor? What he see or she?
Everybody okay with it?
Yep, no, I got that. And much appreciated to have that information on the record.
That's the reason why he's, Mr. Primouth is proposing, if there were any concerns of aesthetics by the neighbor, those arborvitae trees would mute that.
Well, perhaps I've already trees and then the top of the roof that you're proposing. That's what I'm kind of getting at.
I don't understand your question.
Yeah, Bertie, you're going to have what you're asking for is a pretty tall roof.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm asking if you can compare that to the height of the house that's already there. And I'm asking also, what are the neighbors going to be seeing should your application be granted with regard to the height of the roof, arborvitae bushes notwithstanding, which are not normally 27 feet tall.
I would, based on what I'm seeing and with the familiarity I have with the site, that would be the equivalent of about the roof line of the home right now. It wouldn't stand up like much larger or looking awkward or out of place.
It's gonna be below the roof line.
Below the roof line.
It's gonna be below the roof line.
Below roof line. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your patience with me.
It's okay. It's good.
Madam Chairman. I have one more question. This garage, right now you're showing it as you can just drive right to it, right? And it's facing, the 3 doors will be facing you as you're driving in.
Yes.
Did you look at the option of turning it and so that you don't have to look for side and backyard variances, just the height variance would be required then?
You can tell.
If you look at the map there, and if I turn it the other way, and to go in, I gotta make a huge turn to go in.
Right.
And it's gonna be all the way. And you're gonna set back to the smaller part, what goes back there. You see where the line goes, a jib there.
Right.
So I can't get it there. I'm gonna be over the other property there.
Because you're 184 feet wide there.
Yeah, but it's not straight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, so I think your question would be, if you were to say, for example, this is where it levels off at the top of the driveway right here. This is the structure of the home. I think what you're suggesting is if Mr. Premouth were to continue, not to continue straight down as he's proposing now, but rather make a turn, that would also create a lot more asphalt in the back. And what he's trying to do is minimize, not to make it look like a basketball court, but to keep the aesthetics in the property. This is all right now, this is all untreated and grassed. And if you were to go this way with the jog towards this, you'd be putting a lot more asphalt down on the ground than if it were just to go straight to right here.
I fail to see how it would be a lot more asphalt. However, it would be more
Absolutely.
because you are going forward and then turning. But you didn't look at that.
Yes, I look at that option too.
Uh-huh.
And if I bring the building over, I can go show you here.
Yeah.
So from here, you see the line goes,
Right.
so if I come here, I'm gonna be over here, more close to this setback here,
Mhm.
because I don't have much room here.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions from the board?
Forgive me, I just want to make sure, before I give consideration to your application, I got this in my mind. What's the distance between the closest side of the proposed garage and your neighbor's house on the left-hand side?
My neighbor house is probably about over 100 foot away.
Thank you.
Towards the front of the house.
Got it.
The neighbor's house is about here.
Yep.
Which is about maybe 3/4, 2/3 of the way up the front driveway.
100 feet? About 100 feet?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I also have some follow-up questions based on some of the other questions I've heard here. I've heard that you considered possibly having the driveway come in and then turn. Did you look at the option of perhaps having the garage parallel with the house so that the tail end of it was parallel with the house on the property and using as much of the flat area and also making the variance less?
This is, the way that the land is laid out is that where the house is almost the only part of the property that's flat. It's almost as if it's on a plateau. And Mr. Premouth has had an architect come in. This isn't something he's just flying by the seat of his pants on, but a professional come in and presumably look at all those options before suggesting this is the way to proceed.
Thank you.
Just a couple questions. Ms. Robinson, this is for you. Tell me a little bit about if this gentleman, the applicant here, doesn't have the heights and the setbacks, can he still build a three-door garage on that property?
Well, there's sort of four variances going on here. One is that accessory structures all combined can't be more than the 2,250 square feet. But if he wanted to shrink the garage down to 2,250 square feet.
Tell me that again, 2,000?
Yeah, 2,250 square feet is outright allowed.
Okay,
So you could shrink it to 2,250 square feet. It's 2,400 now, so that's like a reduction of what, like 150?
yep,
Yeah, so if you knocked 150 square feet off of it, brought it down to 15 feet high, and then met the setbacks, you could have that size garage.
okay.
As of right.
And what's the height that he's over the limit of what?
He's at 23, so that's 8.
8?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Robinson. Back to the applicant, if you don't mind answering my question about, again, are you willing to reduce this garage to 2250 or somewhat close to that number so you can have six garages on your property? And also, are you willing to reduce the height of your garage to minimize the request that you have?
Yes, I can reduce the size of the garage at that 150 foot.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can go with a 2250?
Yes, I could.
And how about the heights? Are you willing to reduce the height?
I would be glad to do that. As I mentioned earlier, the drop I'm getting down there.
Okay,
He has to accommodate that tipsy
Dip.
doodle.
I would very glad to do that.
okay, so how much do you need of the heights to be able to do what you want to do? You need the 8 feet, or can you go with 4 feet?
I can reduce it another 2 feet.
2 feet?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can go with 21 and 2250?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, and Ms. Robinson, is that something our numbers matches kind of?
I mean, he can verbally amend that.
Right,
It's less than what is being proposed.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, would you like to amend that?
Can I just weigh in? If he amends it down to 2250 square feet, then the request for 150 square foot variance for the additional accessory structure coverage, that variance would be eliminated. The other variances would still be required,
Right,
but the height variance would just be reduced.
right.
Just making sure everybody
Yes.
understands.
And before he verbally amends it here, I would think he would need to check with his architect and see if the plans could go and possibly let him come back rather than us approving something that may or may not could be designed.
Well, he's
All right.
probably checked.
He reduced the square
Yeah.
footage? Okay. Well, my client's representing, he's spoken to the
Right.
architect, and we've gone over
So,
this material before we come here, and he's reviewed it with professional.
okay. So your professional, the person you viewed it with, it's okay to go with 2250 and to go with 21 height?
Yes.
I would think 150 square, what are we looking at, I mean, the tabletop?
Well, that reduces like our council said.
Easy on the lawyers.
One of the things that the board has to consider is the extent of the variance or variances that are being requested. So by eliminating the request for 150 square foot variance for the accessory structure, then it reduces what the board has to consider as far as that
Right.
factor.
I mean, that's what we're assigned to do, and that's the only reason we asked for it.
Understood.
Thank you.
So with that said, if you want to make an application to amend the variances that you're requesting, then the board would vote based on the amendment, or they can move forward with the request as currently written.
Okay, on behalf of Mr. Premnath, then, I would therefore make a formal request, an oral application to amend the height variance with a reduction from 23 feet to 21 feet. In addition, on behalf of Mr. Premnath, I would make another oral application to amend the square footage requirement down to the 2,250 square feet, the allowable amount according to the coverage in this area.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to be heard on this? Okay. Hearing nothing, you can take your seat.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Oh, Maureen, do you want to just let him know about the 6-member board?
I did at the beginning.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we were advised.
So, Madam Chair, you said if there's any questions. So the only thing is in front of the board right now is the height of 21 feet, and that's it, right?
Correct.
The side yard setbacks.
2250 for the
Side and rear
yard.
You still have a 15-foot side yard and a 15-foot rear yard.
Right.
Okay. So it was 4, and now it's down to 3? Okay. Okay, so we're probably, okay.
So just a reminder, in order to have discussion, we do need to have a motion and have it seconded in order to have discussion.
I'm sorry, is that a motion to accept the amended
Any-
application or?
Any motion. It could be a motion to disapprove.
Okay, I guess, Madam Chairwoman, I'll go forward. And basically, I'm not convinced that the applicant has done enough to see if there are other alternatives to building this. I think it's a pretty large structure in a nice residential neighborhood. So I think there, on that basis, I don't support the applicant for the variations.
Thank you. A motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Can we call the roll? Any discussion? Now we have the motion and now we can have our discussion. Is there anything that anyone wants to say?
I would add, as a professional architect, if I may, that usually applicants understand the restrictions of the land before they make such plans.
Thank you. Okay, can we call the roll?
Mr. Latif?
Yes.
Mr. Baig?
No,
Oh, sorry, so the motion is to disapprove the variances, taking all 3 together, right?
Also disapprove, so yes.
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
yes,
Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh.
Thank you. While I'm appreciative that the applicant was willing to work to reduce some of the concerns relative to the height of the structure and the square footage, on balance, I'm uncertain and uncomfortable that this would not lead to an undesirable change in the neighborhood, notwithstanding the rear yard being a cemetery. We are in R1. There's already 3 garage stalls, and 3 more sounds given the circumstances, in my humble estimation, substantial and perhaps even excessive. So for those reasons and the reasons stated, I'm voting in favor of the motion not to support the application and to disapprove it.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Chairperson McGinnis?
The request before us is significant. It certainly would change the character of the neighborhood. It is most definitely a business being operated out of the home with equipment that would come down the road. I know I'm quite familiar with all of the cemetery jokes because I had managed Most Holy Redeemer Cemetery and 6 other cemeteries earlier in my career. That is sacred space. I don't necessarily think that the large garage fits in with sacred space. I too vote yes on the amendment or the motion. The motion passes with 6 votes. Your variance is not approved. Thank you for coming before us tonight. Can you call the next case, please?
The appeal of Joshua Richards for a variance from Section 220-4, Section 220-18A2, and Section 220-15D, Section 220-18B3B, and Section 220-13 Schedule IC of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property of 206 Graylock Ave, Niskuna, New York, located in the R2 Medium Density Residential Zoning District, to construct a 12-foot by 12-foot shed in the front yard and partially with a front and rear yard setback. Section 220-4 states that for corner lots, each side line shall be considered a front lot line. The property fronts on 2 streets, Graylock Ave and Becker Street. Section 220-18A2 states, except otherwise specified in this chapter, accessory structures are not permitted in the front yard of any lot. As proposed, the shed will be located in the front yard along Graylock Ave. Therefore, a location of the shed in the front yard requires a variance. Section 220-15D states corner lots, front yard minimums shall be required of both yards facing the street on the corner lot. Side yard minimums shall be required of the remaining 2 yards for the property located in the R1 and R2 zoning districts. Section 220-18B3B states that the required side and rear yard dimensions for major accessory structures shall be the same as applies to the principal building. As defined, major accessory structures are detached accessory buildings or other structures in excess of 120 square feet. The shed at 144 square feet is a major accessory structure. Section 220-13 Schedule IC establishes a front yard minimum setback of 30 feet and a side yard minimum setback of 15 feet. As proposed, the shed will be located 5 feet from the front property line along Graylock Ave, and the shed will be located 5 feet from the rear property line. Therefore, both a 25-foot front yard setback variance and a 10-foot rear yard setback variance for the shed are required. 7 notices were mailed out, 1 response. Dear Niskuna Zoning Board of Appeals, I received the letter today, town letter regarding the appeal filed for Joshua Richards to place a 12-foot by 12-foot shed in his yard. I own the adjacent lot to Joshua Richards at 69 North Allendale Ave, Niskuna, New York. I totally approve of this request for a variance to place the shed. And this is from Elizabeth Cano at 69 North Allendale.
Thank you. Is the applicant here with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure. My name is Joshua Richards, 206 Graylock Avenue, Schenectady, New York, 12304.
So, sir, tonight we only have 6 board members present. Who can vote on your application. You're required by law to have 4 affirmative votes for your case to be approved. It can be 4 out of 6 or 4 out of 7. It's up to you if you'd like to proceed with the 6 members tonight.
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Okay, could you please tell us about your application?
Sure. We're looking to put a shed in the our back corner. We consider it our backyard, even though it does border that paper street of Greylock. There was a shed there when we originally bought the house. I had to take it down because the wood was rotting. It was just unsafe. But just looking to put it back in that back corner, just because it's easier access for the driveway to our garage. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board?
Just a quick question. You had a shed there, you said?
Yeah, there was one on the property when we originally bought the house about 5 years ago. It was I want to say a 10 by 10, like an aluminum shed put on just a wooden platform.
Okay, and now you build in a 10 by 12?
We're looking to do a 12 by 12, but my wife very nicely pointed out I don't need a 12 by 12. I mean, we are willing to go down to a 10 by 12 if necessary.
What's on the application?
The application is for a 12 by 12 with crushed stone down as a base.
Okay, and what happened to the old shed?
I had to take it down. It was unsafe. My snowblower actually fell through the wooden floor, so it just had to go.
And the shed was there before you moved in, you said?
That's correct.
Okay, and do you mind sharing when you moved into the house?
I think it's about 5 years ago now.
5 years? Okay, I'm just wondering if previously they got a permit for the shed. No? Okay. So Laura shakes her head, no, they didn't. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Madam Chairman. Hi, Joshua. Did you say that the shed was located in the same location where you're putting the new shed, or was it?
That's correct. Yes, I'd like to put it in the same location that the original shed was, back in the back left corner. If you're looking at our driveway,
Right.
it would be to the left of our driveway.
And you also stated that you are willing to go to a 10 by 12?
Yes, yeah, we can definitely make that happen. So it's not that big of a deal. The extra 20 some odd square feet isn't too big of a deal.
So
It's really just going to be for storage, lawnmowers, snow blowers, kids' bikes, that type of deal.
Okay, thank you. So Laura, if it's a 10 by 12 shed, then there doesn't need to be a variance because then it's a 5 foot.
Yeah, so it would definitely remove the variance for this rear yard. I'm just looking up what it does to the front. I have to look that up. But you'd still need a variance for it to be in the front yard. And then the question is, does it still need a setback to the front yard, which I'll look up right now.
Right, and the front yard is a paper street, is what. I
Yeah,
have.
there's like a driveway, like Linda did that aerial that you have in your packets. It's not a town road, like we don't plow it. There's like a driveway to an abandoned property on that street, but it's not enough. It's basically a paper street.
Thank you.
Mr. Richards, this is Richard Green. Is your home within close proximity of a water pump? Not station, but a facility?
There's a little on the turnaround on the dead end there. There's a fenced-in area. I'm not sure what that is actually. Is it maybe a transfer station of some sort? I'm not really sure what that is.
Well, let's call it a transfer station. That's fine. As you're standing at the transfer station, and your house is on your right-hand side, is it your request to be able to obtain a variance to place your shed in the corner of the yard, notwithstanding whether it's a front or a side or a back?
There really is. I think like the area that I talked with somebody at the town about was back by my neighbor's shed, which would be in the back right corner of our lot. Like if you're looking at an aerial image of it, she has her shed back there. And I guess that's actually considered my backyard. There's like a little 10 by maybe 15 section that's considered my actual backyard. But yes, we definitely don't want it there. We'd really like to have it where the other shed was.
If this application is granted, aside from your neighbors who are immediately adjacent to you, what's the distance between the next neighbor? Isn't there a field, an area that could almost be described as a field?
Yeah, exactly. There's nobody, the gentleman who owns the field next to us also just recently bought the lot behind us. So there won't be any neighbors back there for a while. He said he's just going to hold on to the land. He doesn't plan on building anything.
Yep, and let's move fast forward in time and surmise that things might change and that there might be neighbors there.
Okay.
With the shed that you're proposing, what does it look like? Does it have any windows on it? What's it made of? What are those people who might live, what are those people who might live there? What are they going to be looking at?
I will look exactly like my house. We'll have it sided to match the house. I will have one window facing our driveway, so there will be no windows on the back side of it. It'll just be siding.
And what kind
I'll
of?
have a metal roof as well.
Yep, and forgive me, this is my shortcoming. What type of siding are you proposing?
We're going to do vinyl siding to match the color of our home.
And what color is that?
It's a tan, beige, I guess. We'll call it tan.
All right. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Mr. Richards, this is Katrina Pacheco. Just a question for you about the placement of the shed for those potential future neighbors. What would be their relationship to that shed? Would that be in their at a side yard to them or their backyard? How would they be seeing your shed?
Well, I guess it all depends on which way they place their house. I would say side yard, maybe.
So would these potential future neighbors be accessing their piece of land from Greylock?
Correct. Yes, it would be from Greylock. Like they would drive up Greylock, and where I want to put the shed would be on their right hand side, driving up Greylock.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one more question. This is Mr. Lataif. There's any fence between your property and the empty property now?
There is. That was also there when we purchased the house. It's just a wooden 8-foot fence. It goes, I would say, approximately 200 feet-ish. I think my property is 150 feet, and it goes past that.
Okay.
And honestly, we nobody knows who owns that fence. We're not sure if just the builder put it up when he built our houses, or nobody seems to know who owns that.
Okay, but there is a fence, and the fence is, how far is the fence from the shed you're going to put in?
I would like to have it 5 feet from that shed.
5 feet, okay.
Or from the fence, I'm sorry.
From the fence, so the fence is exactly between the two properties.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone in the audience wishing to be heard? All right, thank you very much. So do we have a motion?
Madam Chairperson, may I inquire whether the applicant has officially and formally moved to amend the application to reduce the request for the size from, as initially requested, the 12 by 12 down to the 10 by 2?
Sir, have you, are you formally requesting to reduce the size of the shed?
Before
Yes,
we have him
to
answer
the
that,
10 by 12.
Well, yes, so if he does amend it, it removes the need for the 10-foot rear yard setback, but the remaining two variances stay the same because the forgiveness for the minor accessory structure is only to side and rear lot lines. So it would still require a 25-foot front yard setback variance and a variance to have an accessory structure in the front yard.
So given that, sir, how would you like to proceed?
I would like to proceed with a 10 by 12 shed.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I would move to approve the application as amended. We have a relatively unique situation given the location of this residence. The Graylock Avenue is with the transfer, what's been termed a transfer station. And this house is, except for the one adjoining neighbor, there are no other immediate adjoining neighbors. I'm uncertain that their benefit could be achieved by other means, perhaps, but it, as proposed, is not unreasonable. The location in what would appear to be the rear corner of what appears to be the back of the house. I don't see how this proposed shed would be an undesirable change in the neighborhood. In fact, it might actually enhance it, given the description that the applicant has made with regard to it matching the house, the color of the house and such. And the request may be seen as substantial, but not so much so as to preclude, in my humble estimation, the granting of the request. I don't see and did not hear anything concerning the existence of an adverse physical or environmental effect. And certainly while the difficulty might be seen as self-created, that's not necessarily determinative here. So for those reasons, I would make a motion to approve the variance as amended.
Thank you. There's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion, Madam Chair. And just to clarify, it's 10 by 12. And the only thing I'd like to add, it is like Mr. Green said, it is a unique property. And also I'd like to add that there used to be a shed in the same spot where they put in the shed. Thank you.
We have a motion that's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can we call the roll?
Mr. Latif?
Yes.
Mr. Begg?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes, and I'd like to thank the applicant for working to remove at least one of the variances requested.
Chairperson McGinnis?
I vote yes, and I also would like to thank the applicant for working with us to reduce the size of the variance. Your variance has been granted. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Can we call the next case, please?
Appeal of Michael Casella for a variance from Section 220-18B3B and Section 220-16B1 and Section 220-13 Schedule IG of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 3477 Rosendale Road, Niskuna, New York, located in the LC Land Conservation Zoning District, to construct a 16-foot by 28-foot garage addition partially within a side yard setback. Section 220-18B3B states that the required side and rear yard dimension for major accessory structures shall be the same as applies to the principal building. As defined, major accessory structures are detached accessory buildings or other structures in excess of 120 square feet. The garage, along with the proposed addition, is a major accessory structure. Section 220-16B1 states that where the side wall of a building is not parallel to the side lot line or is broken or otherwise irregular, the side yard may be varied. In such case, the average width of the side yard shall not be less than the otherwise required width, provided, however, that such side yard shall not be narrower at any one point than half the otherwise required minimum width. Section 220-13, Schedule IG requires a minimum side yard setback of 100 feet. As proposed, the addition would be an average side setback of 20 feet. Therefore, an average side setback variance of 80 feet is required. 8 notices were mailed, 1 response. To whom it may concern, I am writing this letter in reference to the zoning change request for the property at 3477 Rosendale Road, owned by Mike Casello. Mike has made many improvements to his property over the years, which were done professionally and made his historic house more attractive. I'm sure his proposed project will be done in the same manner, so I have no problem with the board members approving this zoning change request. From John Del Signor at 1112 Niskiuna Road.
Madam Chair, I'd like to recuse myself from this case, just for the record.
Okay. Given that, and we now only have 5, how do we proceed?
The applicant can still choose to move forward with a 5-person board. You just have to know that you still will need the 4 votes out of 5. What?
I'd like to invite the applicant to come up, please. Again, state your name and address for the record, and then tell us about the variance that you're requesting.
Michael Casella, 3477 Rosendale Road, Niskiuna. I've been living in this property for 30 years, and I've kind of outgrown my garage, barn, whatever you want to call it. I've outgrown it a little bit, only because I'm retiring and I'm becoming more involved with hobbies versus work. One of the hobbies is I'm going to restore a Corvette that I bought. And I don't really want to put one of my nice cars outside, so I can fix the car inside. And I thought it'd be appropriate to put a little addition on here. On top of that, I believe in some of the paperwork that I submitted, this building currently is a little over 1,000 square feet, and I'm looking to add 448 square feet, which would bring it to about 1,500 square feet total, which is obviously below the numbers we need. On the same token, directly adjacent, within 100 feet of this current building, there are 2 buildings in existence that are well over, each one individually would be well over the amount that I'm proposing. So as far as conforming with what's there, it would. It's not going to block anybody's view. There's no trees that need to be cut down. There's no very, very little grading, if any, from the street. You're not going to, when you look at the building from the street, all you see is the front. So if this goes through, it's not going to change the view from the street. The height's going to be the same. The roof's going to match. The paint's going to match. And the reason for 16 feet is because the way the current building is, it's actually a pole barn, and the 6x6 posts are all 8 foot apart. So by going 16 feet, I can continue the exact design of the building, only extending it out 2 more posts on each end. Basically, that's all I have to say, unless you have any questions. And if you folks think that you want to come and visit the property before you vote on it, we can wait till next month. You're welcome to come over, but I think Mr. Del Signor made a very good comment, and I appreciate his comment. Like I said, I've been there 30 years. I keep my property meticulous. I'm kind of a bug about that. I'm proud of that. I got the biggest flag in town. I mean, I'm patriotic. So basically, I don't know if there's any more questions, but I'll be happy to answer them.
I have some questions. Richard Green, thank you so much for your being here in this application. All right, just let's get the lay of the land down for the record. Ready, when you're looking at the front of your house, straight on, what you see is the front of the house, correct?
Yes.
But behind your house, right, is the river. You got the river,
Yes.
right? And you, to the little bit to the left, you got the Lions Park, right?
Yes.
You got a parking lot, right? And then you have the bike path running along the river, right? And this application where you're proposing to expand your garage is approximately how far from the bike path? It's a substantial distance, isn't it?
I would say it's probably 150 feet.
Right. And
My property's 360 feet from the street down to the end of my property, and then from there, it's probably another 30 or 40 feet of state land before you actually get to the bike path.
right. And so if you're on Rosendale Road, unless you're really looking like someone who might have made a site visit, someone like me.
You're welcome to. do
No, I
so.
did. I'm
Oh, okay.
You can't, you would not see this. And even if you did see the garage, correct, you're asking this board to give you permission to extend the back of the garage.
Correct.
I got it. Thanks.
No, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate your time.
Madam Chair. I had a question. There are two variances here. One is an area variance and one is a use variance. Are we considering both here or?
No, the applicant just did a little bit extra paperwork. So he filled out the use variance questions, but they're not actually relevant. The only thing that's before you is an area variance related to the side yard setback.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Casella, I'm Katrina Pacheco. I also have some questions just to understand the application. As Mr. Green said, and you were saying, this is an addition on the back side of a building that faces Rosendale, is that correct?
Correct.
So as you're looking from Rosendale, the addition would be hardly visible, is that?
I agree with that, yes.
Okay. How many garages do you currently have?
Well, there's a very small garage attached to my house. Right now, I've got 3 motorcycles in there. That's all that really fits. So really, the garage I have down in my lower yard is a 2-bay garage, and I can fit 2 vehicles in there, and then I have like my lawn tractor and snow blower, and there's not really a lot more room. I have a workbench, but that's just it. I want to push it back so I can get another vehicle in there and work on it without having all this stuff outside.
Right, so just for understanding's sake, you have one garage on your house and then a 2-car garage further down.
I would say it's a 2.5-car garage further down, so yes.
Okay.
And that was the pole barn.
It's a pole barn.
Okay.
Which, by the way, I applied for a variance for that building from, well, not the same number of people, there's not same people, same body of 27 or 26 years ago to construct that. And I did actually, at the time, I reduced the size that I proposed in the height and the length at the time. And it's been fine. But like I said, I'm kind of outgrown it. And I'm happy to say that it's a good thing.
May I also ask, as you're adding on to that existing garage, is there any change to the height or it's just continuing
No, there's a picture. I provided a picture. I don't know if you have that.
Yes, I just want to
Okay.
have it on.
Can I see that?
It's in your package. For the record.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Oh, I'm good. I got it. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to be heard? Okay, sir, you can come up and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Pardon me. Jeffrey Stringer, 3483 Rosendale Road. I live directly next door to the property in question, and I wish to offer a dissenting view. Mr. Casella has indeed kept his property immaculate, but it's been at the expense in several instances of my property. There's a stream, which is the boundary that separates us, and my deed calls the center of the stream to be the boundary. And he has continually dumped rubble in, which has forced the stream bed over which has eroded a vast quantity. We're talking probably 100 yards or more of cubic yards of material, which has caused damage to my foundation for my garage, one of the buildings he's speaking of being very large. My property was built in 1842 by a man named, a family, Winnie, Matthew and Gertrude Winnie. They built it at their wedding. He was a state legislator. It was probably the fanciest house in Old Niskayuna at its time. It's not that way anymore. Mr. Casella also pointed out that he has a flag that's very large, which when I sit in my living room on a windy evening, I cannot listen to my television. It is up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's very noisy. There is no ordinance against having a flagpole, but it stands close to 40 foot, one way or the other. Until my dogs got used to the shadow, they would bark at it continually from the flag in the afternoon. I believe that the drainage from this building would exacerbate the problems with the stream. I also believe that the zoning board should give consideration to the traffic circle which is going in, which is going to impact the stream. There's no guarantee that the stream volume will be diminished at all. It's going to make more effort on my part to mitigate the stream robbery, if you will, for a better term. And I do not think that the increase in size really sits in the residential character of the neighborhood. And although other neighbors did not respond by post, I have spoken, and there is considered opinion that this is probably not a good thing for this neighborhood. Thank you very much.
So if you're standing looking at Mr. Casella's house, where is your house, to the left or to the right?
Behind. I have a keyhole driveway. I am between his next door neighbor to the east and the second neighbor to the east.
Your address again is?
3483 Rosendale Road.
So, can I ask a question? So the house that is kind of sitting in the back is the house that is yours?
Yes. This is my house, this is the garage, this is the shop that I have, this is the chicken coop, which is just a shed, and back here is the barn, which dates about 1820.
And the curved line that's shown there, is that the approximate location?
That's the
of
stream. That would be the stream, I believe, yes.
And have you reported to the town before about the stream?
Yes, multiple times.
To like building department, police?
Building department.
Any other questions for?
Lori, how many complaints come in on that?
On the stream? Yeah, we do receive those complaints and we do investigate them. I mean, one resulted in Mr. Casella taking out, a significant building permit he had to do a floodplain development permit and, bring the stream back to the initial way that it had been, required engineering. I don't know if there's an outstanding complaint right now. I'd have to check. But we do receive them occasionally.
The permit was about below my house, not above it. The problem is from Rosendale Road down to my house is where the dumping of rubble was. Below is a very beautiful job. He paid good money to have it done. It's all really nice riprap. It's It's a good-looking stone. It's a nice-looking job, no doubt about it. But it doesn't mitigate the effect to my house. It's down next to the barn. The rubble has been the problem. By putting more and more rubble in there, it's moved the stream over. The stream has cut the bank away. I've lost not only height, but width. The original house is brick. And in 1840, to make a brick house, you built the kiln where the house was going to be built. And all of the extraneous building bricks that weren't of quality were dumped over the edge of the stream. My garage is a replacement of a 1920 or 30 building that was grandfathered in. It was there when I moved in. And that building was built just on the stream bank. When I replaced it in kind, I had the excavator go down as close to bedrock as he could. And most of it is on bedrock, but some of it is not. And that is being undercut by the stream. So it's been very problematic.
Thank you. Okay, hearing no more discussion, do we?
Respond to his concern?
Sure.
First of all,
You have to talk in the microphone.
thank you. Firstly, there's been several occasions, most recently about 4 years ago, we dug up the pool concrete, and put new concrete in. I took that concrete and put it along the side, which is well below where Mr. Stringer's discussing this erosion. And somebody called the town, and the town came over, and the gentleman looked at it and said, "This is great, you should do this the whole way," which I ended up doing. The erosion of the stream, the erosion being caused by the stream has nothing to do with me. If you look at the construction of Mr. Stringer's 70-foot long building, which is adjacent to my garage, the first 2/3 of it, they had all these concrete pieces placed strategically to prevent erosion, but they didn't have enough concrete. So the last third of that, I can see where it's eroding. But if anybody wants to come over and look at it, you can clearly see where there's probably 4, 5, or 6 feet from where my stone ends to where the water actually travels, unless it's a big storm. But what I'm saying is, he's upset about the flag. That's the sound of freedom, hearing that flag in the wind, okay? I've never heard of anybody in this country complaining about a flag until today. Well, I've heard about it before, but this whole thing has nothing to do with what we're proposing here. We're not proposing changing the stream, dumping rocks in, new flag, nothing. This has nothing. He's just upset about the flag, and he says all his only opportunity to voice his displeasure with my beautiful property. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Unless you need any more questions.
I have an additional question.
Sure.
On the current garage that you have that's opposite your neighbor's garage, is there a gutter system to capture the water off the roof?
There is not.
Would you consider adding that there to mitigate some kind of, perceived issue with water runoff from your property?
I would be happy to consider that, but it's going to end up in the stream anyway. So I don't see where it's going to make any kind of a difference. Plus my garage where this addition is just past where this erosion is occurring. I mean, if you said, hey, put gutters up and that's the deal, fine, I'll put the gutters up. That's not a problem.
I'm only asking.
No,
Would consider that.
Absolutely.
Seeing as your garage starts further upstream than the end of his garage where that erosion is.
The front of my garage is about even with the end of his garage.
That white area, is that pavement?
This is concrete.
Mm-hmm.
This is the actual garage right here. My garage is right here. His building, it actually starts before mine. And They end about the same, so my addition would be just past the back of his long building there, where it's a $5 or $6 garage.
Madam Chairwoman, may I address a question to Ms. Robertson?
Absolutely.
If this application were to be granted, is there some mechanism to ensure that with regard to any drainage concerning this subject, the extension of the garage would be addressed, appropriately?
The building permit, yeah. I know you guys do typically sometimes hear drainage concerns with zoning board of appeals, but the engineering department does review additions and things if they have a potential to impact drainage. And, we can make a note to them that there's drainage concerns in this area. They definitely have been out to the stream and they can, so basically like the town code says that any building permit can't make the drainage situation worse, right? It doesn't have to make it better, but you kind of have to know how it works right now. And we try to ensure that any building permit that we issue doesn't make the drainage situation worse. So if there's, this situation does have a concern for drainage, the engineering department would review it for those impacts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do you have another question, sir? Okay. You have to come to the podium and speak in the microphone, please.
My response about the flag was not about the flag. It was about his pride in putting up the largest flag in Niskayuna. He has one on his front porch. He has a 40-foot tall pole in the backyard. You have to go all the way to Central Avenue to find another flag that big. There is no one in the town of Niskayuna that has one like that. That's a question of pride, not patriotism. I was just responding to what he said. Forgive me. The rubble that he dumps in to the stream pushes the boundary over and allowed the erosion of the clay and brick material that was historically there. That was a conscious thing on his part. I would like to ask the dear woman here, Ms. Robertson, would you tell me if the shed roof on the side of his garage was in fact put on with a variance? There is a shed roof next to the garage, which dumps all of the water into the stream.
Oops, so the applicant, there's actually 3 variances.
I'm only asking because I was told by neighbors that it was not, that it just went up.
Sir, if you could indicate on the image where that shed roof is that you're talking about?
This one here is a shed roof. When he was in business, he brought his snowplows in there.
So is it an open area?
It's a shed, yes. It's
But
just
open, there's no walls on the side?
no walls. But it's added to the building.
Yeah, so the variance that was granted was for a 28 by 36 foot garage. Where's that nice map? 28 by 36. Yeah, so according to all the documentation, the variances that were granted are what exist on the property. It's 28 by 36 feet, 28 feet wide by 36 feet deep,
That's the garage.
the garage.
So anything in excess of that is not variance and was not.
If it goes beyond that, it didn't receive a variance.
Anyway. Any questions? No?
Thank you.
Yes.
We're going to have to put an end to the back and forth because this is primarily a neighbor dispute, and the board really needs to focus on what is the application before it and not the
Thank you.
complaints
You've
that are
answered
being
my
drafted.
question. Thank you. You've answered my question.
Laura, is there anything else we need to know?
No, I don't have anything else.
We've had significant discussion. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting if we could. I don't know if that's something that's allowed.
I mean, you can make an application to table it. Certainly, I would suggest there be discussion on it if we can get a second.
Okay, well, I propose that because it seems that there is information that we may be lacking about what is on the property and some of the needs of the applicant, how they are proposed to be met, and the effect that it would have on the neighboring property in terms of the environment. So I don't know that I could make that I could approve or disapprove a motion for variance.
Motion's been made to table.
I'll second that.
The motion's been seconded. Any discussion?
Second.
Hearing no discussion, can we call the roll on the motion to table the variance?
Mr. Latif?
I recuse myself, I abstain.
Oh, that's right. Mr. Baig?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
On the motion to table, yes.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Chairperson McGinnis?
Yes, for the reasons stated. So what will happen now, Laura?
Yeah, so when a board member asks for an adjournment, it's at no cost to the applicant. We don't re-notify the neighbors, but we can follow up with the information that was requested, and then this will be the first case, because it's unresolved, at the next meeting.
I'd like to thank all of the parties for staying for a long meeting. And, you know, it's unfortunate that you were the last case, but you can look forward to being the first case next month.
I'd like to just reiterate that anybody's welcome to call me, and I'll be happy to walk them through the property or whatever, any questions they have in person.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Good night.
Is there any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Second.
Can you call the roll, please?
It's done.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Oh, I have, oh, do these new? Oh, thank you. Yep, great, thank you.
I go to the board meetings.
Gotcha.
Is it still a hot mic or not, right?
We did an excellent job.
Thank you.